Hello, 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 and welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. I'm your host, Bub, and with me most of the time, almost as always, and sometimes even here joining me on stream is Roger, a.k.a. Metarog.
Hey, how you doing, Bub? How are folks out there in YouTube land?
I can't speak for them, but I'm doing great.
Well, I figured they will spawn in the chat, not verbally, like
surely.
Yeah.
I don't know. You never know with this chat.
So you having a good MLK day?
Yeah, I knew I was off work for something.
I was gonna say, were you working today? I doubt it.
No, it's a rare thing. I was actually off today. I think this is the first Martin Luther King Jr. Day that I've ever been paid to be off.
Oh, that's right. In your previous job, you weren't paid for holidays like that, right?
I mean, we were paid for the most essential holidays, but we didn't pretty much get any of the extra ones or the non-biblical ones for sure.
Right. So you got Christmas. Well, Thanksgiving is not exactly biblical, but
no, that's true. But yeah, it was the standards. Pretty much there were often times where the banks would be closed and we weren't. But but now with these new digs, we get off everything, all the extra holidays out there, and some far more obscure than this one.
Right,
we get those off too.
Juneteenth and Columbus Day, right?
Yeah, all that, President's Day, and it's crazy.
All right, cool. I did have to work today because it was payrolls due today, but other than that, it was okay.
Yeah. Well, I hope you didn't have the whip cracked over you too hard.
Yeah, I cracked my own whip, essentially. My boss is like,
hey, what you do on your time working from home is your business.
Exactly. He's like, as long as it gets done, I don't care what you do, murder, mayhem, that's fine. Just get the payroll done.
Well, allegedly we've got 10 people already watching, so we better get with the content. Roger, do you want to shout out the fine folks that have come to see us this fine, potentially fine. I don't know how it is really out there for everybody. It's cold and wet over here, but go ahead, Roger. Tell us about the chat.
Yeah, it's about 60 here, a little bit of wind. Not bad. Yeah, it'll be my honor. In here, as usual, tailgating. I tell you, the man has got to have some kind of doppelganger YouTube.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because he's everywhere. James Las Cruces, 1971. How you doing, my friend? Great to see you here.
I think he has multiple channels with Las Cruces spelled just a little bit different in each one, and no one can tell the difference.
I think I see him like in a room with a panoramic amount of monitors.
I know that he comments on my videos so often, and I know everyone else's too, but he comments on my videos so often that if I type the word thanks, Google finishes it with Las Cruces.
Right. Listen, if you can find a community video without a Las Cruces 1971 comment, you've hit the lottery.
Right? Yeah, and then Las Cruces is going to claim the prize.
Exactly. Right. He should. Yeah, absolutely should. Yeah, absolutely. But thank you for the incredible support you provide this community, Las Cruces.
Oh, yeah.
Not late for once is Ranger Sly from Montreal, I do believe.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It's a holiday there, maybe too. I don't know. He was
Could be.
American.
Maybe he fell off a moose or something, and
No, it's yeah.
his head.
Maybe it's a snow day over there or something.
It could be.
Our buddy Kevin Taylor is actually here.
Hey, go to bed, Kevin. What are you doing up so late?
Whoa, man! I mean, I think he's like, I'm not letting these guys get away with anything today, you know.
Yeah, really.
And that's it as far as the chat goes.
All right. Well, thank you three for showing up. Anyone else who's watching, you're welcome to keep watching. It's all good.
I'm sure more people will mosey along here soon.
Yeah, one of these days, Roger's going to share this video with his channel, but not yet.
I don't know how to do that, Bub. Can I do that?
No, I would say not at this point. I'm sure they took that away from you because you never used it. So that's all good. So let's see. Do you recall at all what our chat name is for this evening? What our team name is? Do you recall?
Webhead Wonders, maybe.
Yes, the No Faces comic chat with the Webhead Wonders. That's correct.
Was that close?
No, well, you were all over it. Are you kidding me?
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I would have put.
If you were any closer, you'd have been correct.
Oh man, you had me going.
Oh yeah, that's what I try. So do you remember what our big topic of the evening is? I'm sure you recall this.
Well, I do recall because you came up with a good one, I think. Spider-Man artists.
Yeah.
You know, there are very separate eras here in Spidey's art world that has Amazing Spider-Man, and then later on, to his other titles that came out of that.
Yes. I am in agreement.
Well, that's a fact. It's a good thing you are,
Oh, is that it? All right.
Yeah, it's a good thing you are. Yeah, it's a good thing.
I'm gonna talk about like the early group, and then I'll let you. I'll stop with my least favorite Spider-Man artist. So I'll start with my most favorite.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, let me think. I don't know. That's a tough one. What? We'll discuss it. How about that? We'll discuss it.
I mean, you're the one who came up with this topic. Why is it a tough one for you? You had hours.
Well, because I hadn't thought about ranking them as far as how well I like them. I was just gonna discuss their different styles, but
that's fair. I just like kind of in chronological order, but yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I know. Well, even though I have a couple up, it looks like we all went with the same. Well, actually, no, because I have an extra artist. All right, so we'll have to start with you chronologically. Then you're welcome. So, Roger, tell us about the fine artist you have right there.
Right. Well, the first 30 some issues were by, of course, Steve Ditko. And Amazing Fantasy 15 as well. I do have a few of them, but they're kind of buried. So Night Tiger gave me this one that he picked up in Sweden. So I figured I'd use this as to see the Ditko. Now the Ditko Spider-Man, I mean, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with it.
Oh, why so?
Well, because I think his body, the body proportions, etc., of Spider-Man are okay for Ditko. I'm not crazy about his backgrounds and sometimes how sometimes very fluid, not in a sense that they stream, in a sense that sometimes metal seems like soft and there's not a lot of hard edges to his art sometimes. And the way that he portrays the fighting scenes and stuff are a little bit stiff for me. But I think his Spider-Man is classic. There are certain ones like the cover where he's the water, he's about to drown in that water scene.
Yeah.
And things that are dripping, things that are that have amorphous shapes, he's really great at. But things that have to be a little bit tighter pencils, a little bit lacking there. I'm speaking like I know what the heck I'm talking about. I can't draw anything. So, he's like a million times better than anything I could come up with. But I'm just saying, within the hierarchy of Spider-Man artists, I have them somewhere in the middle of the road.
That's fair. It's stuff like the legs on 16.
Mm-hmm.
that make it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of take it as its own style. It's very. It kind of reminds me of, like, remember how you used to have like a sticker book, and you would have like a background on the sticker book, and then you could peel stickers
Right. Mm-hmm.
and put them on them, and you could move them like from one spot. You could peel it off and put it back, like they're like vinyl stickers.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what his art reminds me of. Like, it's very two-dimensional. It's very flat, and purposefully so, it seems.
Yes.
And so it's its own style. So if you like that, I think sometimes it really works, and other times not so much. So I think that's part of it. Hey, Mastodon, how's it going?
Yeah, that's why I said I have a love-hate relationship, because exactly what you're saying. I mean, sometimes it seems very. The action just doesn't seem like it flows very well from panel to panel. Sometimes it seems like it's very static at times. Now I do think that, for example, his Doctor Strange, that mystical stuff, his art is just so just outrageously odd and over the top when it comes to those things. That's appropriate, but for a superhero, it's not quite fine-tuned to a superhero. Great for monsters and mystical stuff and maybe horror, but for superhero, he's just middle of the road for me.
Yeah, look at this. So Ranger Sly says Ditko's clothes, building, and cars are stuck in the 50s. He was drawing guys in fedoras and suits in the 80s. Yeah, that's true. There's no doubt about that.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And also, we have to talk a little bit, about the kind of visceral look that he gave, like, Peter Parker. So Peter Parker, until the next artist that we'll speak about, I suppose, chronologically, but Peter Parker really is not a good looking guy. Like,
the glasses take up like 80% of his face, Yeah.
He's no looker,
Yeah. But that's on purpose, that's on purpose. He wants to make him look like a bookworm, like a nerd, like somebody who's unpopular. But yeah, it's a little bit, even taking that into consideration, it's a little bit out there.
Yes, it is. And again, it's much more in line with like the Golden Age crime books. To me, it has more of that look. If you guys get it, if you get into much of those Golden Age crime books, it's much more like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's really quite something. And of course that all changes here soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jay, yes, we're live. Ranger Sly says he loves Dit Cop, which I think was a Korean pop band. They all wore Spider-Man outfits.
Yeah, K-pop. It's real popular stuff nowadays.
Love Dit Pop. Yeah. C. Woodard's in the house. Hey, C. Wood, how's it going? Kevin Taylor says, did you know that Amazing Fantasy won an Alley Award, I'm going to say, in 1962 for the best short story? Look at that. Did not know that. I did not. Did you know that, Roger? I don't want to speak for you.
I did not know that. No, I did not.
I did not know that either. Yep. Good. Glad. He's in the Car Nation, I guess, or something. All right. Ditko kind of defined the action and movies of the acrobatic superhero on Spidey even more than Kirby. Yes, he said it. Look at that. Yeah, I think that there is definitely, to me, Spider-Man, the term gets thrown around a lot as a street level hero. And to me, that just means that he's someone who fights crime.
Right.
And all his villains are basically crime based, motivated by money or small amounts of power, if you will. Right. Very little of the, I'm doing this to own the world kind of stuff, and exactly, instead I'm doing this to rule the neighborhood,
Right. Exactly.
So,
right.
Yeah. Right. So, and because of that, I think that the early books really have much more of a street level feel, a more realistic kind of take, where Spider-Man is the only odd thing going on. But then, of course, Marvel being Marvel, it really starts mixing and warping in with other heroes and such, and it gets much more, kind of larger, right?
Yeah.
But Spider-Man still generally sticks with his neck of the woods and fights crime. He's a crime fighter.
Right. Exactly. I agree, and that's why, like, several times he's like sort of attempted or considered joining the Avengers, and he's like, nah, this is not for me, because the Avengers are, take on these mega powered villains and groups and so forth, and all, now he's obviously in the MCU because of how popular he is, but
yeah,
he really never fit in with the event. I know that in the 21st century, I think he did join the Avengers for a while, whatever. But that's exactly. He's not that kind of hero. He is, he fights like the Rhino is about as powerful, as you can get, right? I mean, for him, tough, much stronger, much tougher. But he's a bull in a china shop. Spider-Man can run circles around him, so he has that going. But Thanos or Galactus or even like the Stranger, I mean, he's got no shot.
Right. Yeah, and is just woefully overmatched in a lot of situations. I mean, even when you consider the reach of his power set, is just so limited. And with his webbing, although it is used something of a weapon, it's really more of a travel and restraint device.
Right.
It's not really, I've never seen him like hit someone with a power of webbing so strong that he actually did damage to someone.
Right. He can pull down things like water towers and brick walls on people, things like that. But most of the time, you're right. It's really more for restraint and for travel. And sometimes it's for saving techniques, like he'll make trampolines and things like that. But
yeah. Sure. But it's not necessarily an offensive weapon.
No, I wouldn't call it that at all. No, it can be used for offensive purposes in certain circumstances, but not in and of itself. It has to have other things included that will make it. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that kind of keeps him of a limited outreach for his power.
Yeah.
So, but Ditko, and I'm not a huge Ditko fan. I do like this. Some of the Spider-Man is pretty good. And he did a couple of like Golden Age sci-fi covers that I like. But for the most part, I think had it not been for his work on on Spider-Man necessarily, I don't think that it would be as revered, that he would be up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's one of those where the character really carried the artist.
Yeah. Define the artist to a certain degree. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he still would be up there because of his work, in like you said, in the Golden Age and the Monster era, and Charlton, and and what he did for Doctor Strange, and he would still be up there, but not nearly up in the in the clouds. He'd be more up in the mountains somewhere.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if it would be for those who make the Mount Rushmore of comic artists. I don't know if he makes it. I think
right.
I think if you're a huge Superman fan, and especially early Superman fan, then yes, I don't think there's any doubt. But I think Spider-Man. Well, why do you keep saying Superman then?
Hey, listen, if you're starting to go, I got no shot.
All right then,
no shot.
Figure it out.
All right, want to head on to the next guy?
Yeah. Let's Ramita size this.
All right.
Let's see what do we got. All right, so Ditko's coming down. See you later, Ditko. We're thank you for all your hard work and for putting up with Stan Lee until you couldn't anymore.
Right.
So thank you for all that. And then we get into some fun Romita-y stuff, huh? Senior, of course.
Right, we do. Now he had two different runs on Spider-Man. You're the one right after Ditko. And then he was on there for quite a while. Then he went after Gil Kane as well.
Yes. So let's see what we have here. I think both mine are the first.
Yeah.
I think these is the first Ramita one.
Yeah. Correct.
So here we have some great what I think where Ramita shined was creating a look of a sounds bad. We're not knocking, I swear we're not knocking Ditko as hard as it sounds.
No.
But I think that the introduction of realistic looking heroes and villains comes in. The body proportions that Romita gave both Spider-Man and the villains are very realistic and enjoyable, and it's very classic looking. It looks like real comic artwork, you know. And I guess you could say it's a much more modern style than Ditko had, but it really, to me, this is this, when I think of Spider-Man's look, I always think of Romita Sr. as my Spider-Man. And maybe that's not fair because the Ditko run is fairly short, but it's still just, to me, it's more dynamic. It's more exciting. You get a lot of the inner monologue starts coming in, and I know that's a lot with writing and such, but you get a lot more of that. Well, they're also not as wordy. I mean, those early few are like just a lot of close-ups of someone's face, and then like a whole panel of text, and it kind of gets bogged down in that. And these are more adventure-y to me. Where he's, where the assumption is that he's doing a normal kind of life or a normal crime fighting life, and then something exciting happens, and that's why we're telling the story. We're telling the story because this is a break from his mundane crime fighting, where he's, helping purse snatchers and everything else. And now we've got like a really exciting, villain that's also, it's the first time or not the first, but it's the early examples of Spider-Man getting targeted, where people are after Spider-Man because he's already a known entity and people are after him.
Yeah, he's a thorn on their side for sure.
Yes. And he's mucking up the works, he's ruining the heist, and now they got to take him out before they can go any further. And that's just a lot of fun. So this is a fun run for me. I enjoy it. Even not being the biggest Spider-Man fan ever, I do enjoy it. Is this the Superman show? Very close, Jackson. Just stick around. I'm sure you'll find some Superman-worthy conversation. My Spidey's one I grew up with was the next batch of artists, Senior and Gil Kane. That's fair. Gil who, Ranger? Yeah, exactly. Somebody mentioned Gil Kane. Be careful. Here we go.
Yeah, Four Colored Fossils, they have an alarm for Gil Kane, so you have to be.
Oh, do they? Is it a positive alarm or a negative alarm?
It's a over the top alarm. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I like Gil Kane. Best one was
it's a joke. It's an inside joke. It's not.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there you go.
Okay. Well, I think you hit it right on the head, Bob. I'll only add a few things here. To me, I agree. I mean, to me, if you ask me who drew the definitive Spider-Man, okay, if you ask me just in couching in just that question, I'd say Romita Sr. Without blinking an eye. Ditko, we've already talked about the issues there. I mean, okay, so let's not rehash that. And then later on, I think Gil Kane did a pretty darn good job. And then, we can talk about Ross Andrew. He had a huge, long run, 5-6 year run. But when I'm talking about the classic Spider-Man, and when you said something very critical, right? That now he's being targeted. Now the villains are becoming personal. Yeah. Before it was like he was like, interrupting them from stealing or from some kind of mischievous acts, things like that.
Right. Or they didn't expect him to show up either. Like he was just showing up.
Right, because he was newer. You're right, but now he's got very and like Kingpin. That was a very talking a mafia boss. Now you're talking about now taking on a whole organization, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about, okay, they're not going to just forgive you for interrupting one of their machinations, right? You showed the Shocker there. I mean, just powerful, thick. Now his Spider-Man, notice Ditko's was very spindly, which is fine. But Romita's was a little buff, a little more stocky, and a little more powerful. I mean, strength-wise, it seemed like to me the way that he was used.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, but Romita's art is just, there is not one panel I have found of Romita where he takes shortcuts, or he doesn't look at the storyboard and apply the correct art scene, the correct art, the correct movement. Everything is just, he's such a pro's pro, I guess is the best way to put it. Just a fabulous, fabulous artist in every regard, and not just in this genre, because you look at other genres that he's been part of. He's very good at he I think he's one of those guys that he studies, he puts in the time, and he just has a world of talent. When you put all that together, you get a dynamic artist like this that, to me, defined who Spider-Man is long term. To me, I mean, when I think of him, when I think of Spider-Man, that's who I think of. I don't think of Ditko. I don't really think of Andrew. I don't really, not even close to McFarlane or anything like that. I think of Romita Senior, and to me, that means that he's there for the end, because he had 2 runs in Spider-Man. That cinched it all the more, because he had such different. He had this more Silver Age run, then he had the Bronze Age run, which I'm showing here, which had some very definitive.
That's what I was going to show.
Oh, sorry.
I quit.
Including his battle with the Hulk, here.
Yeah.
And of course the 2. I have the 121 too, by the way, Bub.
You need that.
I do have it. I have it.
Oh, okay.
I got a real low grade one, which I pressed clean. I worked on that thing for like a week, and it looks better. And of course,
better.
Yeah, it doesn't look perfect, but the death of Gwen Stacy and Green Goblin. I mean, that's, to me, that everybody knows about that. It's like, it's a seminal part, because back then deaths in comics were pretty rare, and to have 2 main characters be off back to back is like unheard of. So that sort of, to me, defined his Bronze Age run. Those 2 storylines.
Yeah, I have to say that I was looking for my copy, but that death of Gwen Stacy is like basically Romita. That's all him. Like he owns Gwen Stacy.
Yeah,
It's just how it goes.
Here it is, Bub. Here it is. Sorry.
There it is. Yeah, I don't have that one.
Yeah, this. I think I told the story of how I got this on somebody's, maybe Naaman's channel, but essentially I got this for a song because the thing was a wreck. So essentially, the only thing that was good is that it's complete and the staples were on it. But I mean, wrinkle, water damage, ripped, the whole bit.
Wow. Well, I do enjoy some Romita and his. This is part of his old run there with who was it mentioned? I think Ranger Sly mentioned Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane. So yeah, you gotta love some good Romita Jane there. So pretty.
Yeah.
So pretty.
Yeah.
And then of course when he came back in the Bronze Age, we've got some extra Romita there. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, both runs are just top-notch stuff. I mean, they're just his ability to storytell, and how clean his pencils are. To me, it made it so attractive. It just compared to, I don't want to keep slamming Ditko and Andrew, but compared, the line work was just so tight compared to those 2. That to me, that's why I love Byrne and Perez, because they are just tight artists. They don't have a lot of that extreme kind of overarching stuff, that extraneous stuff. They know how to draw the character and how the story elements work in panels. And to me, that's one of the most important aspects of artists.
Yeah. And Macedon sharing some interesting information. You can check out some Romita drawing videos on the old YouTubes.
Yes.
And Ranger Slide talks about his first love lost. With the death of Gwen Stacy. He crushed him as a kid, and he had a crush on her, and he left comics for a while, not long after, which is a sad story. We want to know the lady that brought you back to comics. Were you just perusing down the aisle and you saw a nice like Lady Jane and just, oh my gosh, I'm back, baby.
Right. Right. Well,
All right.
it was a very, to a young kid, it's kind of upsetting when you have sort of a comic crush and she
Oh,
dies.
sure.
It's upsetting. Yeah.
I remember the first time I cried in a comic. It wasn't well. I mean, it wasn't because I had a crush on the character, but I remember when Wolverine's girlfriend in Japan died.
Yeah.
And I remember that, and I was like, "No," because you knew it was going to happen. I mean, it was all over. It was written on every page as soon as she showed up. You knew it was going to happen, but it still it devastated me.
Yeah.
But that happens,
Yeah.
and that was just a couple of years ago when I read that. So
Mm.
that's look at
Okay.
never got a clone. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Dazzler
144, the
brought him
clone
back.
comes back. Yeah, but that's
I
that's a,
bet.
that's a different thing.
All right. So are you? Wait a minute. All right, you're changing. All right.
There you go.
Are we up to Kane?
I'm up to Kane. Yes,
All right, Gil Kane.
I'm up to Kane.
So if the 6 arms tells you anything, it does get interesting.
Oh
But
yeah.
I happen to like Gil Kane personally.
Mhm.
It's I don't. It's just its own style. It's its own look. And when you consider what would follow in a few years, I think by default he ends up being one of the top Spider-Man artists just because he's not as bad as some others that would follow. So, in my opinion, he has his own style. It's very distinct and different
Right.
from Ramita, and of course Ditko, removed again by then. So, it's it's a very unique style. It's very line heavy,
Yep.
but it is good, I think, and it's dynamic. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this short run on. Not all. I mean, you have to dissect every issue, but
Right. Right.
yeah.
Well, I always like this one because it's a Moribus. I was like, oh, what didn't you read the first 101? Anyway. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying for the most part. Very distinct. Of course, Kane was a longtime DC artist, in Atom and Green Lantern. So I remember reading a few of those before, and then when I was, I of course I wasn't collecting off the rack when his Spider-Man run was going on. I started, I think, on 120, right after the Romita run there, or right at the end of it. But what I like about his art is that because it is unique and distinct, the characters have a freshness to them, that a lot of other artists are, some kinds like kind of try to rehash what was going on before, or the characters. And here he kind of like it's almost like the characters were updated to a certain degree when Gil Kane was there.
Yeah.
Like you said, obviously we all know about the nostrils and the mouth with no actual teeth, just like the white part, and all those kind of little nuances that Gil Kane included in his Spider-Man run made it fresh to me. And he's also really good at drawing characters like the lizard that have the little reticulations and
Yeah.
things like that. I really, and flying characters. I thought he always was pretty good at swooping, things like that. The how smooth he flows the lines, heavy lines like you said, but smooth lines.
Oh yeah.
I always attribute him as a smooth artist, not as tight as Romita, for example, and not quite the backgrounds can be a little bit vague here and there with Kane, unlike Romita, which were a little bit tighter, but still it works because it sort of accentuates the foreground characters, the fights, and all the dynamism that happens in that part of the panel. So yeah, I put him up there, much better than average artist Gil Kane, in my opinion.
Well, I think one of the other things that starts happening during the Kane run, and of course we're going back and forth, right? Because it gets a little muddled during this time period because we have a jump back to Ramita Senior, and then we have a couple of covers that are done by Romita Sr., but then interiors drawn by Andrew. And then you have some Gil Kane covers with interiors by Russ. And then you have a few that are penciled by Russ, but then inked by Romita with a Gil Kane cover. It's like, what's going on here? Like,
yeah.
know.
So and those combinations can make a difference.
Oh yeah.
So I'm speaking in general, sort of in the in the more amorphous, sense. But yeah, I mean, depending on who inks, I mean, if it's a tight inker, then you're going to have a different product than if you have a very loose or a very black, a very dark inker. That all changes the vibe of the comic. Now if you're in the horror realm, you sometimes do want that darker kind of inking, things like that. But in superheroes, especially if it's a daytime scene, that can be off-putting. So here, these are classic Gil Kane nostrils right here.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, he has very distinctive artists. I can always pick out. I mean, I'm not like the super best about picking out artists, but when it comes to Gil Kane, I'm 95%.
And since this is partially a Superman chat, we'll acknowledge. Who was it that said? I think it was Gore, saying that he disliked Kurt Swan because and it's hard for me because to me Kurt Swan's Superman pretty much that's the Superman,
right?
But I happen to like a lot of the earlier takes on Superman all the way through. I like the Golden Age look of Superman. I think it's hard not to have a good suit. Like it's hard to misdraw Superman, and so I liked Gil Kane Superman too. And of course I like Neil Adams Superman, and it just keeps getting better, so Superman that has so many artists that have worked on it and they all bring something just a little different, but it's hard for me not to just appreciate some good Superman art. But yeah, there you go. So you're welcome.
Yeah. Well, Kurt, I guess it depends on what era you're from. Also, I mean, if you look at Kurt Swan today, you might seem it's a little bit static and a little bit ordinary. Just a little, not quite as dynamic as a lot of modern artists. But you have to consider that at that time, that was pretty out there art. For considering how the other types of cartoons out there. So yeah, I agree. I do like his Superman, and especially because he's such a great storyteller, even more than a technical artist. And Superman is not the easiest kind because not many things can really give him trouble. So you have to kind of be very imaginative. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
All
right. We're moving on.
That's my Gil Kane stuff. All right, there we go.
Lovely. All right, what do you got up next? I guess it would be Junior or no?
No, this is the Ross Andrew. Now, like you said, now he started way earlier, but he didn't have that many covers, like you were saying.
Yeah, he did. He did pencils mostly.
He did the interiors, pencils. Yeah, right.
So who was it? Did some inks for him? Was it Giacoca or whatever his name is?
Giacoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Giacoca. Wasn't that the Chrysler guy?
that's Lee Giacoca, or is it Lee Iacocca? I don't know. Oh yeah, Flash cartoon Superman, absolutely. Rangers Lie hated. Boy, that's rough. Hated Russ Andrew Spidey as a kid. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate. Now, okay, when I was buying off the rack, I bought the whole run of Ross Andrew. Okay, and I didn't hate it, but it just is not Romita. Let's put it that way. I mean,
hey, K-pop.
His faces don't have a lot of detail to them, and so they kind of look similar. His poses look very similar. If you look throughout the whole run, just wasn't the best. And I think it was okay. I mean, and just okay. But yeah, you can tell that they put him on Spider-Man because they knew it would sell with just an okay artist, you know.
It really kicks off the downturn of artistry in the run. It really is where it kind of starts. The writing's on the wall during this period.
Right. Yeah, right. And I mean, like I said, I bought Spider-Man because obviously I love the story. I wanted to continue reading. But I wasn't like overly impressed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Like look at the Punisher's face there. It just, I don't know. It looks creepier than it should. For example,
didn't he draw the interior on the Punisher?
Yeah. He did.
Like his first appearance, didn't he draw the interior on that?
Yes, he did. 129. Absolutely. It's right. I have it right up here. Yeah, he did.
And yet this is what you got.
Yeah, this is what you got. Right. But opinions differ. I mean, remember, Andrew has been drawing since I think the 40s, so he was already a very more experienced artist. I wanted to say older artist, but a very experienced artist, and he had been doing it for a long period of time, and his style really never. I don't want to slam the guy, but it never really progressed much. Let's put it that way, in my opinion. It stayed the same throughout his tenure. So it was okay. I didn't like say, wow, I'm not going to buy it because of this guy, but.
I think if you're a Spidey fan, there was enough there to keep you going. Plus, you had some good writers on the title at that time, coming and going, unfortunately, but still.
Yeah, you did have a lot coming. I mean, as with Spider-Man, you have such, at this point, you had such a rich cast.
Yeah.
And personal connections like the Osborns and the Brants, etc. Molten Man was. Okay, so yeah, you had, and of course J. Jonah Jameson, which is just hired everybody he could get his finger on to get rid of them. So you had a lot of interesting interpersonal stuff going on. It wasn't the best writing. I mean, as far as how Spider-Man grew, he didn't really.
See, but I appreciate this time because it was a time when you could have roughly standalone issues. I think at this time they were doing maybe 3-issue story arcs at best. And it was, a typical introduction to the new villain, full storyline of the villain, and then the outro, and that was pretty solid. I mean, I kind of like that. I'm not huge on character, on main hero development. I kind of like them to be stuck, Okay,
well,
in a place where I like them, but I don't like when someone who's on the book for 6 issues comes in and makes a major course change to the title and to change kind of, makes a watershed moment with their little tiny run. I'm just not crazy about that. And that can happen.
Oh yeah, certainly. Like when I mean, I guess what I mean by that is, like, for example, in his world, he was in high school for like ever. I mean, and then it took him until 1978 to graduate college. I mean, so
well, he wasn't that smart.
He was genius level. He was a genius level. That's why Spider-Man. I mean, I don't want to slam the character. Let me put it that way, because as a kid, loved Spider-Man. But when I look back, the character, it's okay. He said, "Oh, he's relatable." Yeah, I'm a scientific genius with superpowers who has every beautiful girl after him that he, of course, messes up with, and has all these opportunities to use his powers, yet doesn't.
Yeah, you're right. He's more like me than you. You called it, Roger.
Well, it's like whoa, everything is woe is me angst
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got financial issues, and in that sense, you can you can relate to that. But man, he had so many opportunities to get to not have financial issues. So yeah, yeah. They did things a little bit. They took things a little bit too far, in my opinion. He could have been. I'm not saying he could be Iron Man and the head of Stark Industries and all that, but he could have done better. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. All right, now let's get into the real dearth, and of which I don't have much. So I
Okay.
would have to jump about 100 issues from where we're at right now. So maybe 200 issues, and by then we're already crossing over into other Spider-Man titles.
Yeah,
So
I didn't bring any other Spider-Man titles. I just stuck to this one.
all right, what do you got with Madam Web? Ugh.
Well, yeah. Now this is my favorite artist, John Romita Jr.
Well, first let's start here by saying that talk about a family.
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, I mean,
yeah.
it's just something. I've got this whole thing here. The Ramitas are one of the most impressive family dynasties in the world of comic book art. John Romita Sr. has drawn every major Marvel character, Spider-Man, and it's an amazing. And he wasn't he art director for a while too?
Yes, absolutely was. Yep.
And so you take what massive coattails, and then and then you drop a child on it, and you see what happens. And
Yeah.
honestly, the John Romita Jr. Hulk stuff, I don't hate it. Like I'm
No.
not.
Yeah. His earlier stuff, I think, was okay. Really, I thought it was I didn't mind it at all. You're absolutely right. Now, when he got into his X-Men, that's when he just went off the rails to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind this run that much. I mean, listen, he's not his dad. Let's just call it what it is, okay?
Yeah.
He's not. He is. He's an artist with talent. Don't get me wrong, right? But not the superstar talent and the visionary that Romita was, right? And that's not a slam on him, all right? Not at all. That's not a slam. His slam on my slam on him is when he goes absolutely berserko over there on X-Men, and I could barely recognize who the heck they were over there. But this one, his pencils were much tighter here.
Now, I'm going to say something a little controversial, just a little. But at this point, are we starting to get into a precursor to what the 90s image effect is going to be, where it's just a forced departure from prior styles?
I wouldn't say yet. I wouldn't say that happens until a few years later.
Maybe Bagley. You start getting into more Bagley stuff.
Right. Because after this, you get you get a few fill-in artists, Hannigan, things like that, and then you get into the Ron Friends. And Friends he's a very Marvel style guy,
Yeah.
And I don't think Romita Jr. here. I think his art here was serviceable. Let's put it that way. Yeah, the only thing that would have made Roger keep his human fly issues is Stan Jr. Yeah, sure.
And a signature. Maybe CGC him too.
Yeah, that would have done it. All right. So yeah. Here again, here's the Ron Friends stuff. I don't know what you would consider this.
I hate it. I hate it, but personally, I hate it. I think it's ugly. But I also, there is a difference between the cover art, which is very, late 70s pop art look, and there's a difference between that and the interiors. And the interiors aren't very bad. I think they're pretty decent, solid work, but the covers are terrible. But I think that the interior work I think it's fair. It certainly conveys a story, and there's some good storylines through this run.
Yes, that's exactly what I want to say. There's some really good storylines here, and Friends did a admirable job, I would say, conveying those stories. Again, if we compare him to Romita or Kane, no, there's no comparison.
No.
But certainly it wasn't dragging down the title. That's how I would best put it. Yeah, some of these covers. Look at this Spider-Man here.
I mean, by then we're already in cartoon era, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, yes, no, definitely. This is 1984, 85.
I feel like that had an effect.
Yeah, this is 84.
Yeah, that had an effect across the Marvel universe when you started having Spidey and his amazing friends, and you had, even in DC it had an effect, although to a lesser extent, I think, than it did on Marvel. But the synergy of the cartoons made a big difference, and it really brought the comics back into a kiddie type of cartoon style. I think it was just an art style that was played more for kids
to a certain degree. Yeah, I mean, and again, look at the Spider-Man here. I mean, kind of an odd pose. They're way too wide of a stance there. But anyway, but like you said, it was okay. It got the job done barely. But it got the job done. But I just don't think that because it's Spider-Man, I don't think that they, at this point, the Marvel editor or the publishers didn't say, well, we have to put a superstar on there because it's Spider-Man. It's selling no matter, we can put whoever on there, not whoever, but a serviceable artist is plenty good. Now, if we're talking about other titles that need help, then we have to put them on those titles. Those are the superstar artists.
And we had
a burn on Fantastic Four because that was going downhill,
And we had already marked the conclusion of Spider-Man needs to be on everything. Like that's already coming to a close. It comes back around again when McFarlane comes around, but we'll probably talk about that in a minute. But there for a while, there was a gap of there. I mean, Spider-Man was on everything. He was crossing over all titles. They were using him to sell all these other books. And around this time, that kind of cools down. There's less of that,
Yeah, you're right. Like in Dazzler, you saw his head there in number 1. And Nova, you said, well, in the spirit of yes, you're right. They were more
Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck, right? Exactly, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, correct. And later on, this Wolverine had that same kind of. If a title was like new, like Sleepwalker, there's Wolverine. So he was that big because of the cartoon and because of the long history and the marketing. He had at this point bed sheets and hats and shoes. Everything Spider-Man was going on. Yeah,
everything. Spider-Man and the Hulk was it.
Correct.
That was Marvel's Batman, Superman.
Yep, you're right.
They were riding it.
Yep. You got it. All right. You want to go to the next? Now we're getting into more what you're probably thinking.
Yeah, I guess so. Go ahead.
You want to go first, or you want to go first?
You want to do like? I guess we'll do McFarlane really, because we kind of skipped over. But I'll show his little contribution. So for a lot of people, this became Spider-Man. The extreme contortion, the flexibility, the odd angles, it was really a revamp. Now, if only they could have paired some decent writing with that art style, it might have been better for me. But these stories in the Spider-Man run are just unreadable. Like they're terrible stories. Maybe that's just me. I don't think people really talk about the stories in this run too often, but they're just bad and they're long and drawn out. They go on for, 5, 6, 7 issues at a time. And then they harken back to 4 or 5 issues before. And it's just like, it's almost like trying to recreate a Spider-Man universe. And the art is really interesting and it's different. And it really helped. I don't know how to I remember as a kid, remember when the Secret Wars toys were out, and all the toys. And I remember that after this, I didn't feel like they could make a proper Spider-Man toy because the toy couldn't bend and do all the things that Spider-Man could do.
Right.
And before that, they could. The toys were fine before that.
Right.
Then after this, after McFarlane had his way with Spider-Man, it just really changed the look, the aesthetic, and what it meant to be Spider-Man. And I think in a good way, it gets followed up afterwards with people that were just trying to mimic it, and it gets real bad. But the original McFarlane stuff holds up. Like the art does look good, and it is a unique style, and I think it works for Spider-Man. But it kind of comes out of nowhere either, without any explanation. It's just like, here's a Spider-Man for the kids, or for the new, for the new hip 12-year-olds. Here we go.
Yeah, for the new audience. Yeah, you're right. The Ranger was asking who was right. I think it was David Michelinie during this era. I'm not sure about the adjectiveless Spider-Man run. Who was writing? Was McFarlane writing that at some point?
I don't know. He might have. I think so.
Okay. Because you're right. I mean, those. Yeah. I think I bought like the first 16 issues or whatever.
Web of is pretty rough too, and we get Web of, we get Spider-Man, and then we get Peter Parker, which is just terrible.
Yeah. This.
My gosh.
Yeah. That's
terrible.
The first 5 issues there, Spider-Man with the Calypso and Craven is just a mess. I mean, it's,
on Web of.
Yeah. Well, and the Web of, I gave up on that because it was just unreadable. Stuff, but I gave up on Spider-Man after 16 because I was like, why am I buying this title? I mean, like you said, the art is pretty and nice and all that, but man, those long winding stories where they were just
it would go nowhere.
Yeah, it was like, okay, then what? Oh, they're still alive. Oh, they're dead. Come on. Anyway, okay. I will say this about Mark. I mean, his webbing is, to me, very unique.
It never went back. That's Spider-Man. He brought Spider-Man's webbing, and it really never went back.
Right. Correct. Not like like the more classical webbing with the different types of rhombuses, kind of like that in a web. No, his were spiral tied and kind of they were very right. Exactly. A little gooier, and they had different knots in them. Yeah, very dynamic. That's true. And I did like that about because it never made sense to me that it should be, everything would be so concentric. It should be wrapped up in and of itself for it to be much stronger. Like three chords.
But for it to squirt out of a tiny hole in his wrist, it was less realistic. I mean, it was more realistic that you would have to have webbing like that to do everything that he did with it. But at the same time, this was supposed to be something that came out of a tiny little wrist shooter. Right. Like where's his tanks of webbing he would have had to have on his back to make this stuff?
Right. I mean, it's science fiction-y stuff here. I mean,
right. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of looking at it. Yes.
Yeah. It's totally unrealistic, but it's comics. So I mean, you sort of look past some of those things. Like like I was talking to Green Man, like Daredevil swinging from a building to a building with that billy club. His shoulder would be separated every time. I mean, it's totally physically just impossible. But anyway, so I did like that aspect. But his over stylized art sometimes got a little bit too off the beaten. It just went too far off, and like sometimes the ladies had these impossibly thin waists, and these huge eyes and things like that, which it was okay for a while, but after a while it did get a little tiresome.
Yeah.
Sorry. Here's that homage to Action 1 that he did. Not too bad, not too shabby on that, I'd say.
Yeah, I like that. And it kind of gives me a fondness when I see the old New York City police cars. Like,
that's right. Go back to your old fonts.
That's like the first style of cop car I remember as a kid. So that's about right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jackson says webbing like that would have come out of his yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, spinneret, out of the spinneret.
Oh, I hate that issue.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Who even drew? Is that McFarlane?
Yeah, that's McFarlane.
God, it's ugly.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's meant to be. I know, but still.
Yeah, it is meant to be, but it's not. It's not ugly in an aesthetic way.
Right.
You know? It's just look at those fingers. It's like
terrible.
I mean, my arthritic mother has straighter fingers than that. You know. But anyway, yeah. So
yep.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with McFarlane is when you the bigger faces sometimes don't work out too well. You know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I never liked, you know, like the big faces that he drew. And then of course, you know, Venom, like with the rows of razor teeth. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know. Again, you know, I don't hate his art per se. I mean, but you know, it's some people are just, you know, it's like they bow at the shrine of McFarlane, and I don't quite put him up in that, like you said, like the Rushmore or whatever.
No, but it did bring excitement to Marvel at a time when it kind of needed it.
Mm-hmm. True.
And it was a modern looking book for the time. You know, it still is really. It still looks modern.
True.
And it did define kind of a generation of comic fans. You had people who loved McFarlane, and then shortly thereafter, you had a lot of people trying to draw like McFarlane.
Like McFarlane,
yeah. Now you can't avoid it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, I agree, and I believe it or not, the issues that he did, there are some which are very well drawn. As far as you know, as far as his storytelling elements, you know, the transitions through panels, the layouts are pretty well done. But others, you can tell he's trying to show off. You know, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's they're much over the top, more over the top than they have to be.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that, I mean, for me, like an old time comic collector, I really like the more professionalism of keeping it, you know, to the story and the same elements in that story. If you want to do it, you know, like a what the or something like that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a main title like this, and inside that particular issue, you're sort of showing off sometimes. Now, I'm not saying about splash pages or centerfolds, but like panels which are just weirdly cramped or don't show the correct action because he wants to show off something that he did in it. That's the kind of thing that kind of turns me off. But that's not everywhere. But every once in a while, that does turn me off.
Yeah. 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 A little too much flourishing just for the sake of showing what you can do. And
yeah, I would sort of compare it to like a football player, which is like about to score a touchdown and he starts prancing and, you know, blowing kisses to the audience, things like that. You know, yeah.
Prancing and blowing kisses were one of my main moves in high school. I gotta tell you, not just on the field.
It's showing off is my point. It's like, look at me, you know, it's about me, that kind of thing. But it doesn't happen all the time. I'm just saying every once in a while I notice that. That's all.
Yeah. Who is that?
That's Eric Larson.
Oh gosh. All right.
I knew this was going to trigger you.
Oh God. Before we get to Larson, I want to show, of course,
go ahead.
this is jumping a little bit, but I like Bagley personally. Mm-hmm. And he also introduced some, you know, he traveled through the Spidey universe, right?
Yep.
And created and was a creator. I think it's kind of one of the last great creators, if you will, of storylines and different types of villains and things. So I like that. I know a lot of people get angry because of his work in some storylines that we won't even talk about tonight. But
Maxim,
I said we weren't going to talk about it.
Well, I was clearing my throat.
But you know, I'm just going to flash up Bagley and say I happen to like his work. I'll leave it at that. I like Bagley. I like him way better than McFarlane. But that's just my opinion. Okay.
No, well, You may be kind of surprised, but I agree with you.
Really, I am surprised.
Yeah, I thought. Now, I wasn't quite as impressed about the storylines that he was a part of necessarily, right?
Yeah.
But I did like his line work. I do like his layouts. He did New Warriors as well. And you have a lot of people say, well, I don't know, I can't say a lot of people. I'm thinking to myself, maybe you think that maybe he had some McFarlane influence in his Spider-Man. But to me, I think he tried to. I think he has a certain style that fits well with Spider-Man.
Yes.
Because again, like you said, he created like those, like the Carnage and the Cardiac guy, and when he did he did a few other storylines there. He draws characters well. In other words, he looks back at the actual origins or the actual classical parts of those villains, and he just gives them a little bit of a Bagley twist to them.
Yeah. And everybody likes that old Bagley twist.
Right, which modernizes it. I think you were getting to that. That modernizes it, brings it up to, listen, if you put Ditko during the 90s, people will be like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this trash? Because it's a whole different era that we're talking about.
It is.
But
it's
I think
completely different.
Yeah, I mean, they would be like, what is this? Is this like avant-garde stuff? What is this?
Yeah.
But Bagley, I think, brought a pretty nice freshness to, like, now this is after Larson, right? So, some people are like you, are of the opinion that Larson was just a McFarlane clone that was very defective.
Low rent McFarlane right there. But some people love him. Like, some people think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's some of it standalone art, that's not terrible. And actually, I thought like the dragons, oh shucks, what's his name?
Savage Dragon.
Some of that's interesting, at least. And I would rather look at Larson than, say, Campbell for a lot of stuff, and J. Scott Campbell for a lot of stuff. I think his proportions were better. But yes, it's some of that extreme, right? We get into the extreme art phase here.
Yeah, the image phase is what I would call it.
Honestly, that's where I would like to stop. So we'll go.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here. His Savage, of course, he created that character, so
right.
There's a lot of love and effort and everything that goes into that character. That's true. But I don't think I hate it quite as much as you do on Spider-Man. But I will say that look at this. Look at Styx's face over here. It looks constipated or something. I mean, it's just odd, It's just...
Well, here's the problem, is that you had McFarlane's style, and when you look at McFarlane's style, you notice that he draws everyone else relatively normal, and then the extreme is always given to the heroes or the villains because they stand out from everyone else. So Spider-Man's the only one that folds up like a pretzel. The Hulk looks like he has veins and muscles coming out of his eyebrows, whatever, but not everyone else did. And then you get to Larson and it's like, everybody looks like that.
Right.
Like, everybody looks like they're a mutant or turned, contorted some weird way. And I start checking out.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'll just say that because you had McFarlane previously, and you're right. There are those distinctions that you can make, right? But still, his faces, I think he over emoted them on not everybody, but on most of the it's like when J. Jonah Jameson was talking, he's a fiery guy, but not everything is spit and smoke. It was very extreme oriented, which is again, goes back to that Image kind of vibe, which
Yeah.
I really despise, because that's just not the way that I think, you should do. Everything has to have stops and starts, slows and speed ups, etc. It can't all be full bore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of like
You mean extreme?
extreme.
You mean it can't be all extreme?
Not extreme, exactly.
But it was. That was the time. Everything
Right, that was
had
the
to
time.
be extreme, like you. Everything was like stressed to the max, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was too over the top for me. But I didn't think it was all that bad in Spider-Man, and certainly not in Savage Dragon. I thought that was a very over the top.
Look at that cover, Roger. Look at that.
No, yeah, that's terrible. That's awful. You're right. You're right. It wasn't all that. Look, like the tarantula here.
Tarantula. Look at his arm. Look at his arm. Just
Yeah, it looks very odd. That's true. I mean, his anatomy was very odd, and his faces were, again, really over the top sometimes.
It's terrible.
But every once in a while, to me, it didn't bother me quite as much. Let's put it that way. But I can certainly see your point. Let's put it that way. Let's put it another way.
Yeah.
Look at the rhino there. Look at.
Do I have to?
Look at the shoulder to the arm. It's like half his body is that arm.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's not the best. Okay. All right. And then the last thing I was going to talk about was Bagley. So, I mean, you already talked about him, but so.
Yeah, I would have skipped Larson.
You would have skipped Larson altogether.
Yeah. I would have put him in that short run, crap crowd, which there's a few of them.
See, look, let's compare these covers here, Bub.
It's easy. I like Bagley.
Let's compare those covers.
I mean, that looks way better. Like that. I mean, he made Thrasher look cool. I mean, that's
well, he was drawing him in New Warriors too. So
yeah, I mean, some people like Thrasher, I guess, but not for me. But yeah, I mean, that's a solid book, I mean,
yeah. I think he drew a really nice not Spider-Man universe. In other words, all the associated characters. I think he studied them as well. He wasn't over stylized like a lot of these other guys were, but he still had that, that kind of modernish look. It was a little brighter, a little more sheen to it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like the style.
Yeah. That after Bagley, that's where my Spider-Man runs ends, because
me too. I'm done after Bagley.
I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those Spider-Man the 400s were atrocious. So yeah.
And available at your local comic shop for $12 a piece.
I can't believe that, right? I can't believe
well,
that.
I mean, it's like, if they see Spider-Man on it, they charge, and it's crazy.
Yeah, but no, the after this era, right after the that storyline we're not going to mention.
We're not talking about it.
We're not talking about it. This title goes straight into the dumpster. I mean, just boom down. I'm not just this title though. I mean, the all of Marvel at this time was really not good.
Struggling period for sure.
Struggling mightily, which is why they brought in the Image guys, and they went bankrupt in the whole bit, because they tried to become a comic book company that had to change with the times, and they not only didn't change with the times, they didn't even give credence to what was working at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember during the time, but we were that close to losing Marvel Comics altogether back in the late 90s. So it was a really stressful time for comic book shops at the time. Let's put it that way.
Look, everybody's picking on us for liking Bagley. All right. Kirby's not in this discussion today.
No, Kirby didn't do a lot of Spider-Man, so
we're not too worried about him.
No, not too worried about it. And again, I haven't collected Spider-Man since 400. So anything that happened after that, I have no idea.
Oh, Roger, you don't look a day over 450.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that's our Spidey show. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know Roger enjoyed it. I felt okay about it, and I had a great time. It was a good show. Thank you all for joining us. Any final thoughts on this Spider-Man fun run for you, Roger?
Well, to me, I really, since I loved collecting the whole storylines and the character appearances, I stuck with him even through those really bad dry spells, which sometimes lasted a few years. He's an iconic character for a reason because of how
he's so relatable.
He's right. That's something I don't take. I don't believe that aspect of him. But he's very dynamic. He's very his powers are cool based on spiders, which arachnids. Kids love those kind of critters and things like that. So you have that relatability or that familiarity. Ugh, I can't speak tonight. But and of course he was a teenager for a long time, so that audience sort of went along with it.
Yeah.
And of course, he was brilliantly marketed by Lee and Company. Brilliantly marketed. And so that even today, he's part of the MCU. And listen, when I went to see Avengers, what was the first one? Infinity War.
Sure.
I sat next to this young fella, probably 8 or 9, when Peter Parker disappeared after the snap. He started crying.
Aww.
Okay, and I started consoling him. I said, trust me, I've been reading comics for 40 some years. He will be back.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay.
And then he looked over to his mom and said, Mom, who's this hairy gorilla? Keeps talking to me.
Well, I had been talking to him during the movie, so we had a relationship.
Yeah. Well, no wonder he was crying.
Yeah. You know me, I'll talk to anybody, I don't care.
I bet this kid had to give you half his popcorn.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care, kid, you're old, female, man. I'll talk to anybody. I don't care.
It's good to know. Yeah, I agree. For me, Spider-Man has never been my favorite character. I liked more of, because he was a thinker, and I liked more of the brute characters more than the thinker characters, unless they were in a team. And I know that that's weird, but I like Donatello was my favorite turtle, You like
the impulse. Well, Donatello was, he was cool. I mean, Michelangelo was more like the free spirit, right?
Yeah, he was wild and but
Donatello was the inventor and
he was the inventor, and I like that kind of stuff. I always liked that. But Spider-Man didn't invent very much. He had those web shooters, and he kind of peaked in high school. That was the end. Unless it was just story dependent that he create some device out of a paperclip, which he did from time to time.
He did MacGyver, and also he would come up with with the 6 arms, that kind of thing. Remember, that was his. And
antidotes. He would work on antidotes for people too. Yeah, I mean, so he did some of that stuff, but it wasn't enough for me. I liked more of the technical guys, but it was still okay. But I like kind of the rage people. I like Wolverine. I like the Hulk. I like the Thing. Big brutish, big mean. Tough guys. That's what I like.
You like the tough guys. All right.
So yeah. But anyway, other than that, and also he was my brother's favorite. So just for the sake of competition alone, then I liked others.
That's probably the main reason right there.
Probably.
You didn't want to give your brother any props. Like, oh yeah, I like that one too. No,
not the same way. I wouldn't mind cheering Captain America. We both like Daredevil and Captain America. But he didn't really care anything about Wolverine, and I loved Wolverine, and he liked the Hulk okay, but he liked Spider-Man much better, and I liked the Hulk better than Spider-Man. So we had a few of our own, and we had a few that we shared, but I let him hold on to Spider-Man for sure. Now I liked when Spider-Man had the black suit and he was a little tougher and meaner. That's when I liked Spider-Man. So when he was being bad, I liked him better. But anyway, that's how it goes. Thank you everybody for joining us. What a great show, if I don't say so myself, and I do.
That was a great discussion. Great discussion. I really enjoyed that.
That was a good one.
DS would have been, probably had some kind of weird angle that we hadn't thought of.
He just showed a couple of Golden Age books with spiders on them.
The spiders on them, yeah, for sure.
But then he would have talked intelligently about all this stuff. For sure.
Yeah, DS. The man is amazing. I miss him.
And we miss you, buddy. If you're listening on the replay or whatever, we miss you. Hope to get you in, maybe even sometime this year. It's a new year. A new hope is renewed. We'll get you on. So Roger, what have you got coming up on your fine channel or any of the channels you'll be gracing?
I think on Thursday I'm going to be on a Comic Bookworm and Sleepy Reader. We're going to be talking about our favorite Commandy stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Commandy isn't Commandy the strips that you stick to the wall and you can pull them off and they don't hurt the wall? Isn't that a Commandy strip?
Isn't
that right?
Maybe it is, but that's not what we're talking about.
Oh, that's not what you're talking about?
We're talking about the Kirby character DC from 1972 or 3.
Oh, isn't that Commandy, the last boy on a raft or something like that?
Yes, the last
boy on Earth.
Yes, although he's not really the last boy on Earth, but that's a story. That's a tale for anher time.
All right, save it for the video.
Yeah.
And you got anything else going on?
No, I don't think so. I have to get together with Bill to finish our Werewolf by Night retrospective, and I'll be on Cover Slingers on the Gray Man's channel on Saturday afternoon.
I thought you guys gave up on that retrospective. It's been like 3 months.
Yeah, it's just that I've been busy, and then when I'm available, he's been busy, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get together in a month or so. All
right, that's fair. Yeah. Well, that sounds good. And Cover Slinger sounds good too. Hope to see you on there. I enjoy that show a lot. Got to watch some of it this week, which is rare because it's always at a time where I'm usually by then awake and out of the house.
So you were asleep when you were watching it.
Yeah, I was laid up. I was tired. So you got a little extra from me this week. I don't really have too much going on. Actually, I finally recorded a video with my time off. I was going to go live this afternoon. I thought about it. And I was like, I don't really want to go live twice in one day. So instead, I just recorded a video.
Oh, good.
And so I'll have that ready to drop on Wednesday. It's an AOK and a comic call, an AOK from the great Rob Boswell. So we thank him for that. And, it's you got to love free books. And my thing is to always have more books coming in than going out. Like that's what I prefer. So that helps. AOKs are good for that. And a small comic haul. And so that'll be fun. So look out for that probably Wednesday morning. I'll probably drop that. So I have something to do all day responding to comments, which is fun in addition to work.
Cool.
So, and then I don't think I've got anything more or less planned coming up. But I always end up in a live stream, probably either on Friday or Saturday with somebody. So if I do, I'll drop a link, share the video, and maybe I'll teach Roger how to do it. Share the video, and we'll go from there. So that's how it works. That's it.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
That's it. All right, bit of a long one today, but Spider-Man's a big topic, so glad we got through it. What do you want to tell the fine folks at home there, Roger?
Be kind to each other, be blessed, and be back next Monday, right, Bob?
Yeah, that's right. Next Monday. And I'll tell everyone to read a comic. Don't apologize for the glare. And don't forget to put the Spidey symbol on Spidey's chest. There, Steve Ditko. What's going on there? What happened?
That's a long story. That's a long story.
I forgot. All right. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye, chat.